Hi, I'm Andrew Hubert for China Solved. Today we're taking a look at the 5 Chinese negotiating styles or types. All negotiators, Chinese, Western, or any other, fall into one of 5 categories or types of negotiators. And those 5 are competitive, compromising, accommodating or yielding, avoiding, or collaborating. If you're interested in reading more about this topic, I refer you to G. Richard Schell's Bargaining for Advantage. Excellent book. What Schell did was to divide each negotiator, his style, into 2 dimensions. He looked at how important the goals or outcomes were to you and how important the counterparties' outcomes and goals were to you. So if you look at the left side, this is how you view the negotiation. If you view the outcome of this negotiation as of top importance, you really want to maximize the value of this individual transaction. Maybe you have a unique asset, maybe you have a very strong bargaining position, or maybe you're just extremely confident about your abilities. Sometimes you'll take more of a moderate approach, especially if you're a professional salesman or a professional purchaser, and the value of this transaction is not that high. It's not live or die. You just want to get the deal done. And sometimes you're not that worried about the benefit or the goal of the negotiation. You're more worried about the risk of not having a transaction. And I use as an example the guy who has a warehouse full of ice cream in August, and your freezer just broke. And if you don't sell it, you have to clean it up. So you don't really care that much about making a huge profit. You're more concerned about avoiding a large loss. And then we are going to look at your view towards your counterparty's benefits or goals. If you have a low opinion of your counterparty, or you don't really worry too much about his feelings or his reaction, then maybe you feel that time is in your favor or the circumstances are in your favor, or you have non-economic considerations. You don't really care what he thinks. In most negotiations, you will have some regard for your counterparty's feelings about the outcome, especially in professional sales or normal business. It'd be nice to see him again. And sometimes you have a very high regard for your counterparty's opinion about this transaction. You really need this client. You want to see him again, or you want to have a strategic relationship, or there are very few buyers or sellers, and you really need to transact with this person, and you need him to say good things about you, and you want to see him again. And there you see the chart that we'll be filling in. On the left, on the y-axis, is the benefits to you, and across the bottom, the x-axis is how you see the benefits going to him. So if you are top left, if all you care about is the benefits to you and you don't really care at all about the benefits or outcome to your counterparty, you are what we call a competitive negotiator. This is typical win-lose aggressive negotiator. 99 to 1 in my favor is proper, and that would be a fine outcome for me. On the other end, the bottom right, is an accommodative negotiator. All he cares about is making the other guy happy. Who's that? This is someone who really needs to make that sale. This is the ice cream vendor with the broken refrigerator that we talked about earlier. 1 to 99, not in my favor. 1 to 99 against me is okay as long as we can finish the business and transact. As long as you're happy, I'm happy. Now we're going to go to the other corner. The top right corner is collaborative. This is the win-win negotiator. This is the guy who wants to work together, to cooperate, to enlarge the pie and create value. 2 plus 2 equals 5 for this type of negotiator. He's always looking for a way to make both sides happy. And the bottom left is the avoiding type. The avoider wins by not playing. He doesn't want to transact. He doesn't want to get involved. He doesn't gain from this transaction, but maybe he has to work harder, or maybe he has to take a risk. And this is a typical bureaucrat who gets paid whether you're happy or not, or it's a reluctant buyer, someone who is afraid of spending the money or afraid of making a commitment, and he would prefer not to transact, not to complete the negotiation. And in the middle of all of this, we have the compromiser. He transacts often, but he doesn't really maximize his value. And this guy is sort of the split the difference, meet in the middle type of negotiator. But the compromiser does the deal. The compromiser always leaves the table with a signed agreement of some kind. So now let's take a look at the Chinese negotiating personalities. The first one we'll look at is competitive types. The competitors in China will often not appear as competitors. They may appear very accommodative. They're going to try to be your friend. They're going to try to build a relationship, as is common in Chinese negotiating, and they're going to offer to help you any way they can. And they may be very flexible on certain issues. Sometimes it'll be price. We'll get to that in a minute. Sometimes a competitive negotiator will be very flexible on issues having to do with schedules, timetables, their ability to handle large quantities, sales targets, and other things that can't be enforced very easily later after you return to your home office in the States. Now, don't fall into the trap of negotiating solely about price with competitive counterparties. That might not be their real interest. Their real interest, it might be in technology, intellectual property, or your invested assets, maybe in your customers, maybe in your client lists, and maybe in certain other deal terms like exclusivity or territory. A competitive type negotiator in the United States is usually going to be very visible. You're usually going to know he's after your money. In China, he may not be after your money, so it might be a lot harder to spot. The next type of negotiator to be on the lookout for in China is the accommodator. And accommodators in China come in two varieties. The first is that guy we already discussed, the secretly competitive negotiator who's going to come across as an accommodator, who's going to bend over backwards to help you, but he's really gathering information on your intellectual property, your technology, and your customer list. But this is not necessarily the most dangerous type of negotiator, the most dangerous type of accommodator. The wolf in sheep's clothing is not necessarily your main problem. In China, kindness really can kill because passive colleagues and partners and other counterparties won't tell you what you need to hear. They only tell you what they think you want to hear. Now, in all fairness, sometimes they feel they are telling you with a gesture, with a raised eyebrow, by looking away, by an expression on their face, and you don't pick up on it because of cultural differences and differing communication styles. But still, this is something to be on the lookout. The Chinese, as a general rule, because of rules of etiquette and culture, tend to look more accommodative than Westerners, even though in reality they are not. Now, compromising and compromisers are an interesting aspect of Chinese negotiating. China is a consensus-oriented culture, and they have a tradition of trying to smooth over difficulties and smooth over differences. And this manifests itself in a certain type of negotiating behavior. They come into a negotiation expecting to compromise. It's very common for a Chinese salesman to set the price outrageously high, maybe 400% above their real target, because he expects you to compromise him down to 200% above what he expects someone else to pay. The key here is to gather information, use your negotiating time together, use your relationship building opportunities to learn as much as you can and to build your own sources of information. Don't start negotiating as soon as they call out a number. Just because they say 500 doesn't mean you've got to start shouting out counteroffers right away. Avoidance plays a big role in a larger Chinese negotiating behavior or set of tactics, which is, quite frankly, passive-aggressive. Chinese will use knowledge, use their insider information, and use their connections to their advantage. And one of the ways is to avoid engaging with you until you make the first, second, third, and fourth move. So you may have to come back to a negotiation several times and come back to a negotiating counterparty several times before you make actual progress. Now, one of the manifestations of avoidance in Chinese negotiation is that you may find it very difficult to make face-to-face contact with the actual decision maker. And you will spend a lot of time working with subordinates, even if you speak Chinese, even if they speak English, even if you have translators. They always say it's a language issue, but it might not be. They gain a lot of power by having the key decision maker avoid face-to-face contact with you and your group. So you've got to be aware of this. Yes, you can probably do a deal through his hierarchy, through his subordinates and the people he sends to meet with you. But you've got to be careful, because if you can't meet with him, meet face-to-face with a real decision maker, now when things are still relatively friendly, it may show that you're going to have a problem later on when things aren't quite as friendly. Let's finish up by talking about collaborators. Now, collaborative negotiators are your greatest hope and your worst fear in China. This is the one we all come to China looking for. Everyone comes to China, all Westerners come in looking for that local partner who has a great network, good local knowledge. He has a keen understanding of how everything works, and he is going to be the perfect partner for you, because you have technology and money and process, and together it's going to be a match made in heaven. So on the one hand, this is a true value-adding partner, can open doors and supply you with vital information and know-how. The problem is that a lot of Chinese counterparties like to talk like they're the boss. They like to act like they're the boss, but they don't really have the power or the authority to back it up. The result is that a lot of big plans get made that never really amount to anything. Now, if you're on your own, if you're the boss, you've got to be careful about giving away too much information. But aside from that, there's really not that much of a risk here. But if you are within a corporation, if you're a part of an organization, the danger is that you are going to be reporting back to headquarters about how much progress you're making and what a great partner you've made. And then later, if things don't work out, you're going to look like you dropped the ball. In general, the real powerful, influential people in China don't move all that quickly. So if your counterparty is getting ahead of himself and talking about what great business you're going to do, it's actually a little bit of a red flag, because the serious guys aren't that quick to talk themselves into partnerships. Let's finish up with a reminder that in China, relationships precede transactions. China is a relationship-oriented negotiating environment, and this is going to impact the style of negotiators that you're going to run into. Anyone who moves too quickly, who starts talking about transaction too early, is likely to be a little bit more competitive than he's letting on. Likewise, you've got to be aware of the Chinese tactic or talent for building trust early and then manipulating that new relationship to their advantage. Okay, I hope you found this useful. For China Solved, this has been Andrew Hubert. If you'd like to check out more China Solved resources on doing business in China, take a look at our online course, Negotiate Successfully in China, available on udemy.com. There's also an ebook available on Kindle called Guanxi for the Busy American, which is a professional's guide to building relationships in China. And don't forget The Fragile Bridge, Conflict Management for Chinese Business. Building relationships is relatively easy in China, but maintaining them is hard. Learn to do it right and to manage your relationships properly. The Fragile Bridge by China Solved.